I don't need a go-to-market strategy. I'm just going to launch and go and see what happens. That is absolutely not true, and I'm going to talk you through why that is. Hello and welcome to Engage and Thrive, also known as EAT, your coffee catch-up with me, your host Taelon, where we will go through common problems and hurdles that come up in business, marketing and advertising and try and demystify them. I know firsthand how complicated and confusing it can seem with all the different acronyms and all the things to do in business. So let me try and help you be better in business. First things first, let's start with grabbing a coffee. Okay, so I think there's kind of 2 points to this about why that misconception is so incorrect. The first thing is that a go-to-market strategy isn't only for a new business or a startup or anything. A go-to-market strategy is for any new market you want to go into, any new demographic, any new project you're trying. You may be having an iteration of a service or trying a variation. That's all the go-to-market, as it's a variant to what you have. And the other thing in terms of not needing a strategy, I think second to customer profiles, this is my number 2 pain about people thinking you don't need a strategy and you can just try something, see what happens, and that's the strategy. And I think that's, again, one of the big failing points that I see commonly across businesses and in marketing. Okay, so next thing to go through, as always, is acronyms. This one's going to have quite a few acronyms and quite a few that we've covered off before. So the first one is GTM, which is go-to-market. This is also obviously used within Google to talk about GTM tags, but again, whole nother conversation. Another one is ROI, so return on investment, which we've covered off several times before. Then CTA, so your call to action, again, another one that we've covered off. KPI, key performance indicators. And the final one, which is CRM, so your customer relationship management. Again, a whole nother chunky conversation that we could have around CRMs. Okay, this week we're going to go through 3 key takeaways about your go-to-market strategy. So number 1 is customer and market. So before even establishing and creating your strategy, you need to really understand, as always, who is your audience? Who is your audience? Who are you trying to target? What's the new iteration version that you're doing of your product or service? What are the trends in the market? And when I say the market, I don't mean the market in the industry. I mean that specific market that you're trying to target, which is from obviously your customer, your geographical, your, everything around that positioning, which kind of leads me into number 2, your strategic planning. So what is your USP that makes your product or service completely different to anything else in the market? Again, not in the broad spectrum of industry, but in the market that you're trying to target. What's your pricing strategy that you're going to do when you enter the market? So a lot of people do offer a promotion as a pricing strategy to get people to buy in. So the first 100 people that sign up get this for free, or you have a freemium model where people can sign up and get a limited offer or limited features, and then they have to buy in. Pricing strategy is really important, especially when you're entering a new market or a market or a country maybe, or anything, because the pricing may be completely different. If you think about the likes of Netflix, the pricing is different actually in each country, and some people may say, that's not how they want to do their pricing, but actually you have to think of affordability of that market, and do you want to then still enter that market based on that assumption? The same thing with your strategic planning is your customer journey. So what's the different touch points your customer is going to go through to buy in? Because again, if this is your first time entering that market, geographically or with that demographically, they potentially don't know anything about your brand. So what is their touch points to build up to that purchase? And the other one, obviously, is what channels of execution are you going to use to interact with your customer? All of those obviously leads into number 3, which is your execution and optimization. So again, kind of touching onto the customer journey point, if people don't know about your product or service, you may want a huge build up situation, like try and create some buzz around this new market or this new flavor or this one-time limited offer or whatever. And again, that all comes into your customer journey and your execution. The same thing comes down with the planning of the execution. So what time of day, the frequency of posting. Are you going to have a soft launch and then you're going to build up and ramp up and have some PR activity? Are you going to have some offline events? Are you going to have influencers? How are you going to do it? So all of that comes into the actual execution and strategically planning that execution down to, and you may do it down to the time of day of when you're going to roll out each of those items. The other thing is the optimization of this plan. So once you've launched, you don't just launch and see what happens. When you've gone through all this planning, you then need to optimize, see what's working, see what's converting, see how people are interacting, and then how do you create your ongoing rhythm to keep this going? So you've entered this market or you've entered this demographic, what have you learned, and how can you keep up that continuous sales of your service or your product, or returning customers, or generating referrals, so they're referring friends. That's one of your other tips about referring friends. So I feel like I've gone on a slight ramble, but that's your key 3 takeaways of creating your go-to-market strategy. And no, it's not only for startups. Anyway, thank you for joining me for another episode of Engage and Thrive with your host Taelon. See you next week for another episode of Eat,